All right, today we're going to learn how to write equations from 2 points that were given. So there are a few steps for you guys to follow to make it a little easier to do so. So the first step that I want you guys to write is to find the slope. When you have 2 points, you find the slope between the 2 points, and I'll help you out, okay? Then you're going to, for the second problem, or the second step, you're going to plug in your slope and 1 point into slope-intercept form. So make sure you guys are writing this stuff, intercept form. These will help you. The third thing you do is you're going to solve for b, which in slope-intercept form is the y-intercept. And then the last thing to do is plug in slope and y-intercept into slope-intercept form. Now, I know that this seems a little hard to understand at first, but once we do some examples, it's going to help you. Okay, so let's get into some examples. So the first thing we have to do, and I'm going to put like step 1 so we can kind of figure it all out. The first thing we're going to do is find our slope. Well, in this first example, it says write the equation of a line that passes through the point -6, 1 with a slope of 2/3. So we already found the slope. Our slope, and remember, M stands for slope, is 2/3. We don't have to do anything from that. Okay. Now, step 2, it says to plug in your slope and 1 point into slope-intercept form. Okay, so we have our slope. And let me write down what slope-intercept form is, y equals mx plus b. So we're going to plug in 2/3 for m, but now I have to find my point. So the point that we're going to have is -6, 1, and we're going to plug it in for x and y. Remember, the first number in a coordinate is x, the second is y. So we're going to plug them in. So I have 1 equals 2/3 times -6 plus b, and yes, that's a b, not a 6. So remember, the second step says plug in your slope and your coordinates, which is x and y, into slope-intercept form. So what we have here, guys, we have all of these numbers and then this b that we're solving for. That is what number 3 is, step 3, okay? So step 3 says to solve for b, which is our y-intercept. So to do that, we have to simplify everything. So when we're solving, we're going to multiply 2/3 times -6. Now you can do this in an equation or in a calculator, or you can do it a little cheaty way. So you do -6 times 2. Okay, so then when I do that, I end up getting -12, and then that 3 is dividing. Okay, so you multiply by the numerator and divide by the denominator. So -12 divided by 3 is a -4. So I simplify all of that. Now I need b to be alone. So what I do, I add 4 to the other side of the equation. So I end up getting that 5 equals b. Okay, so that is step 3. Now we have step 4. Step 4 says to plug in your slope and the y-intercept into slope-intercept form. Well, we have our slope. We had that from the beginning. It's 2/3. We have our y-intercept now because we just found it mathematically. So we plug it in. Y equals 2/3 x plus 5. And that, my friends, is your answer. So let's do it again on this next one. We have the same situation where we do have a slope given to us. That's the first step. We have to find our slope. Well, our slope is -4. Great. Step 1 has been pretty easy so far. Now step 2 is where I plug in my slope and a point into slope-intercept form. So we have slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. And I'm given my slope like we already had been, and then we have this point of 1, 2 from our problem. 1 is going to be going in for x, 2 is in for y. So I'm going to plug them in. I have 2 equals -4 times 1 plus b. And please remember that's a b, that is not a 6. Okay? So step 2 is complete. Now we have step 3. Step 3 is where we are solving for b. We want this b to be alone. So I simplify this equation by first doing -4 times 1. So 2 equals -4, because -4 times 1 is -4, plus b. To get b alone, I draw my wall and I add 4 to both sides to cancel it out, because -4 plus 4 is 0. So I'm left with 6 equals b. So that was step 3. Step 4 is when you just plug in your slope and your y-intercept into slope-intercept form. So just like before, we were given our slope and we found our y-intercept, guys. So step 4, we just find our answer. Y equals -4x plus 6. And that is your answer. Go ahead and try just this first problem, the one that I'm putting a star on your own. We're given the slope and we have a point. Go through all 4 steps to figure out what you guys have. Check back with your answer. All right, so this is what you guys should have had as your final answer. This is how I got it. Our slope was given to us. It was 1. That was step 1. So step 2 said to plug in your point and your slope into y equals mx plus b. I did that. My y is 0, my x is 7, and my m is 1. Step 3 said to solve for b. So 1 times 7 is 7. I subtracted 7 to the other side, so I got -7 equals b. Then step 4, I just plug in my slope and my y-intercept into the correct equation, and that's my answer. Go ahead and try the next one on your own. I did want to tell you guys that it kind of cut off, but it says the slope is a -3/4. It's negative. So make sure that negative sign is with you guys when you're doing this problem. Pause the video and come back to check your answers. All right, so here's the final answer for the problem that you guys just had. Make sure that you put that negative with the 3/4 for your slope. Look it over and make sure your answers are correct. Now our equations are a little different because instead of giving us our slope, we are given 2 points that we have to find our slope from. So don't forget that your slope equation is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And we're going to plug in the points to find what our slope is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to label. My 2 is x1, the 4 is y1, 5 is x2, and -2 is y2. So I'm going to plug it into my equation, guys. We've done this many times before. So it's going to be, for y2 minus y1, it's going to be -2 minus 4 over x2 minus x1, which is 5 minus 2. So now we're just going to find out what our slope is. -2 minus 4, or -2 plus a -4 is -6. 5 minus 3 is 2. And now I simplify. -6 divided by 2 is -3. And guys, that's your slope, okay? So our first step of finding our slope is right there. That's the one difference with this equation from the past, okay? Now our step 2 is where we need to start plugging in. We're going to plug in a point and our slope to y equals mx plus b. So we are given 2 points this time. I usually plug in the first point. You may plug in any points and it will work. So you could plug in 5, -2 if you want. For my purposes here, I'm just going to plug in the very first point for x and my y, and then my m, of course, that we found already. Okay, so instead of y equals mx plus b, it's going to be 4 equals -3 times 2 plus b. I'm going to go solve for b now. So I'm going to do -3 times 2, which is -6, and I'm going to bring it over. And then we have to get b by himself. So to get rid of -6, I'm going to add 6 to the other side. It cancels out. So I'm left with 10 equals b, okay? Now, just a reminder, that was step 3, was to solve for b, okay? Now, our final step. This is the easiest step, guys. This is our 4th step, and it's literally where we plug in b and we plug in m into the equation. So y equals m, which is -3x, plus b, which is 10. And that is our equation. All right? So Go ahead and try the next one on your own. The only difference with this example, guys, is that we have to find our slope. And don't forget that your slope equation is right there. Y2 minus Y1 equals x2, or over x2 minus x1. Try it out, see what you get, and come back to see your answers. I also wanted to let you guys know that this point right here is 3 comma negative 4. So when you're finding your slope, make sure that you notice that's a negative 4. All right, guys, this is the equation I got. Make sure that your slope is correct initially. I got a negative 1 because I simplified the fraction of negative 5 over positive 5. Then I went ahead and I plugged in the very first point that they gave us into my slope-intercept form along with my slope, and then I went ahead and solved for b. Then my final thing I had to do was just plug it all in together. Make sure that you're checking your answers and looking at your work to see if something went wrong, that you know where it went wrong. All right, go ahead and try the next two on your own. It's the same as before. You are finding your slope first, then the other steps have been the same. All right, guys, so I wrote down every part of the steps that you need to just check your answers, but in green, obviously, that is our final answer. I need to write that equation, and that's what we got. So go ahead and check your answers and see how you did.